Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second half of the Tesoro Double Shot. Again, I say this all the time, but we are so lucky to have this artist here tonight. We have Rita Zahir, known as the Raw Poet, on the mic tonight. I am not going to spend her time telling you about her. She's going to do that. I'll just say that she is one of the poets that helped us tear the roof off the Sims library. So when they come looking for people to blame because they are now ruthless, right there. Okay. Um, Located in LA, and we also we got plans for this one. I've got plans for everybody, but we got plans. So Rita, tell us something about yourself. Well, let me introduce myself just first, real quick, for those of you who didn't catch me on the first time. My name is Stacy Dyson. I run Tesoro, which is an international women's poetry organization and network. We are dedicated to the idea that there need to be safe, protected, maintained spaces for women to do their work, women who work in words to do their work. We are international. We have people in, let me run the roll call here, Colombia, Canada, Australia, England, South Africa, and Portugal. We haven't conquered Asia yet, but I'm working on that. So, Rita, honey, tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Rita, and like you said, I go by the Raw Poet, um, which means the pathway of the poet in Farsi, and in English means the Raw as fuck poet. It also comes from my original Farsi name, which was Raw Lo. I've been doing poetry since 2021, but it's always been a love of mine. And like Marissa was saying earlier, Red Green Books just published my very first book of poetry this year called Saffron, Sunshine, and Sweets. There it is. Which you can DM me about at any time. Yeah, and then a year after starting poetry, I started doing spoken word performances as well. So I've been doing that for the last year. And I'm part of some really amazing poetry collectives that have helped me grow over this last year or two tremendously. And so I appreciate Tesoro, especially getting to do events with you guys. It's so important to me, but also a member of the Deadly Pens. And yeah, just doing some fun poetry stuff.
Good. I'm going to start this by asking you what I ask everybody who sits where you are right now. Interpret it any way you want, answer it any way you feel able to. Why poetry and why now?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the why now, this late in my life. I've always loved poetry. I have always loved spoken word. I've owned a million poetry books, and it's always been very important friend to me in my life. Uh, I had as rough a 2020 as a lot of people had, not just with COVID and the lockdowns and trying to teach my kid at school, at home, and feeling like a failure with that, but also very early in 2020, my mom got diagnosed with cancer and actually passed away that year. One of my closest friends in the whole world got COVID in the first month and a half, I think, of COVID before it really knew all of the ramifications and the ways that it could show up, and also passed away. So I lost my job because layoffs. It was just a really rough time, and I had a lot of bad habits that were trying to get me through. And I started on poetry on Clubhouse, and it was just voices in the dark. It was a community, and I was there so often that people started saying, do something, like write something, try. And I did, and then it just grew from there. Um, Particularly, I think poetry is a special kind of writing. It changes your way of digesting what is happening in the world. It is different than storytelling. It is more transformative to me, and because it is a little harder, it pushes you in a way that I think grows you, that no other writing does. And so that's why poetry.
Okay. What is the most difficult thing about writing poetry for you?
That's something that is so important to you, so significant, um, to have self-doubt all the time, constantly about something that is so important to you and so central, and who I'm starting to think of myself as. um I didn't really have a lot of that in my life, right? So if there was something that I wanted to do, like I've been doing marketing for over 15 years, like since the beginning of my career. And so I work really hard to be good at it, and when you're good at it, and when you're not, and you just like that's it, and you progress in your career, and you move up in titles, and you have financial successes with companies, like you see them do well, and then and you're good. In poetry, you have no idea. Like people will tell you you're good, or some days you think you're good, or some days you write something and you're like, oh my God, that is good. I feel that, and whatever. And there's just so many days where you're like, I don't know if I'm really meant to do this at this level with these people who are so incredible and amazing, and am I doing the art justice and all of that. So I think there's a level of that. That's what's the most difficult to me about poetry.
What's the easiest part then?
The easiest part of poetry to me is there's I started when I started doing it, I thought you couldn't write about something that wasn't like on your mind, just like drilling into you. It was like, even if it wasn't sensual or erotic poetry, like it had to be something that was recently experienced, or you were feeling, or you wanted to write. And then I started writing prompts, and all of the sudden I found that it's actually fairly easy for me to twist a prompt, to look at it from different ways, to get into it, and to write to prompts. It's now easier to do that than to be like, this is really important to me. I have a ton of poems that are like really important to me, that are sitting in my mind, that I don't get down on paper until like a prompt triggers it. So that's what's become easier for me.
That's actually pretty impressive for something that's easy for you, because I know there are other people who struggle with that their entire careers. So if that is where you find your ease, God love you for it.
But so sometimes people say it's a crutch, and I can kind of see that. No one's ever said that to me, but I've heard people saying it to other people, and I'm like, oh, I could kind of see that, because it
There,
feels easier.
there are worse things in the world than being a crutch. Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
folks just need to get it. Is the poem good or is it not? That's the dividing line. Everything else can go pretty much.
I agree. Yeah, you're right.
So you get handed, or make it an unlimited amount of money and a
Mm.
plane. Where do you go poet first?
I've never thought about where I go poet first, because I never imagined that I would be good enough to do it outside the US. I never think of it like that. Um,
Well,
so
I'm here to tell you that you should be on international stages.
oh,
So start thinking that way, sweetheart. Where do you want to go?
I've recently been starting to write a lot more female empowerment pieces, and particularly about like my ethnic origins and the view of women. And so like I think the Middle East is where I would want to go. Like if I wasn't afraid of getting arrested, I'd want to go to Iran. I'd want to, do a piece there. Yeah, there's just a lot of places where I'm like, I'd want to support if I could, uh, in that way.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about how your culture and your background pour into what it is that you do.
Um, I actually think it's the opposite. Uh, I think in the early days of poetry, it was like, this is outside of the way that most people that are from my background think about creative writing or even poetry. And I maybe have always felt that this sense of other my whole entire life. So no matter
Okay.
what community I'm in or space or like wherever I'm kind of a part of, I'm almost always an other in some way. So I don't think that it influences me that way. That being said, I think my specific heritage of coming from really strong women, outspoken women, creative, my whole, I feel like a lot of my family is very just creative, even if they didn't use that on a day-to-day basis. Um, and so I think some of that is definitely from that aspect of heritage. And Persians love poets. Like when one of my cousins found out that I was doing poetry and I was writing a poetry book, she was like, you don't know, because she's much older than me. So she really understood Iran, but like how highly revered poets are in Iran, and like how they were really held up as so important to the culture. And at the end of the day, Rumi and Hafez, like really old school Persian poets are, part of my origination story of like who I, read and loved.
Okay. I can work with that. Lord knows we're not revered here. So
No. I don't know if revered meant well paid there. I just, she said revered, highly revered.
whether it does or not, it still applies. We are not revered here.
Yeah.
The query that I hear the most when I tell people what I do is, no, we meant what is your real job?
Oh yeah.
So, that sort of nonsense. Um,
That's funny. I have that quote on I started doing threads instead of Twitter, since Twitter is a abomination now. But one of the threads I put is people always ask me, what do I do? Oh, that's so nice. You're a poet. What do you do in real life? As though poetry is not real life, as though poetry didn't save my life.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that part, because I don't think folks understand that this is what has saved a whole lot of lives, basically. Um, and it's cheaper than paying a therapist. So
Mm-hmm. And it's cheaper
really
than alcohol and drugs too.
much cheaper. All you need is pen or pencil, paper, lipstick, parchment, whatever it is, something to write with and something to write on, and you can go ahead and express. So absolutely. Um, so having now, conquered the stages of Europe and the United States and every other continent that we can think of. Okay. If you're not doing this, what are you doing?
Mm. Well, in my paying the rent job, I work in marketing, e-commerce, direct to consumer. I love that because I also think it's very creative. It is very at a base level, like understanding behaviors, etc. If I was, like you were saying, won the lottery, I'd just be hanging out with my son. He's 9 years old, and we are best friends. And at this age, he still admits to that. And we do adventure days, and I would just do that. I would just do adventures with this
Okay.
kid all around the world. Like we would just do everything. We're both adrenaline junkies, and um, just want to see the world. We're both foodies, and we're just like, yeah, that's what I would do.
So what you're telling me is that in, 6 years, if I, turn on the nature channel, I can see you zip lining through the Amazon with,
I love zip lining.
with the newest type of bread in your mouth. This is what you're telling me. Okay.
Yeah,
Zip
no, I
lining is,
love that stuff.
zip
I hope
lining
in
is for
5, 6
crazy
years I'm
people,
still
but
physically able to do all that. Who knows, whatever. But like you got to do it when you can. But yeah, that's what I would do. Like just be creative in the way that you live your life. Like that would be amazing.
I think that's a really good place to end this interview.
Oh,
So for the next 30 minutes, the mic is yours.
okay.
I've seen you dazzle, so do your thing, honey.
Okay, I'm not sure I've done 30 minutes, but so I think I'm gonna do a bunch of pieces from the book. It'll be fun, hopefully. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna do this one called Graveyard in My Chest, which was a prompt. And that was the actual prompt, Graveyard in My Chest. Absurd audacity. You silly child. To just live like we live forever, to love like the more you pour out, the more the universe will refill your cup, to believe in happy endings, even when it's only the happy that is ending. You cross the loud, bustling intersection with eyes closed, taking giant, proud leaps off the curb like you're issuing a challenge as you hear the fast moving world swirl around your steady steps, your long brown hair blowing in the breeze like it's whimsically waltzing in the wind. Ignoring random signs saying dead end street, no out, no turns allowed, following the decadent scent of a chocolate factory that closed decades ago. You used to chase pretty pink unicorns. Now you ride black Mustangs into the blaze of the sunset, believing the myths of your own mythology, believing what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, when all along the many deaths have just been piling up in a graveyard in your chest, like a collection of totems you wear as a clattering charm necklace around your neck, iced out jewels melting in your imminent climate disaster, looking like rainbow sherbet ice cream melting all over your pristine white dress. But without hesitation or regret, you shed it like snakeskin and just begin again. All the while, distrustfully watching the beautiful but petite songbird decorating her gilded cage with her own bright red feathers, somberly singing the sweet song of freedom, blowing discreet bird kisses at her only friend, unaware it's just a mirror that one day will crack. And on that day, she will also realize that the door has always been open and that her wings were built to fly, but she will not take to the sky, calculating that if she fails, that same snake is there to swallow her whole for even trying. So judgment, wrapped in resentment, will be passed back and forth like a hot potato between two eyes, hiding one soul in turmoil. A solitary warrior fighting a civil war in the land of the formerly free and the home of the barely brave, and none of us even know who we are rooting for anymore. And that's that piece. Okay, so let's see. This one is called P.S. I Love You. I'm not very good at apologies. In truth, I never have been. A stubborn streak that signaled survival in a childhood spent fighting to prove I am worthy, I am wise, and I am powerful. Consistently fighting demons, external and internal, hiding behind a title when nothing is really accidental. Trying to make the case that I belong in places I never belonged. I never thought the road would be this long. Breathing exhaustion. I struggled to pronounce phrases like, I am sorry. Apologies get tangled in the gaps of my vocabulary. Avoidance became my sanctuary. I just can't get any closer, even when I know you deserve better. Struggle with the words to convince you I'm sorry for the days I gave up on you, folded down to darkness like laptop screens. Wish I could have been a warrior instead of sliding into the ease of being a worrier, sustaining strength as a sign of faith. I'm sorry I ignored you when you called to me. I let the echoes swallow me. Let it go like a fleeting memory. I'm sorry for the doors I left closed out of foolish fear, or worse, petulant pride, letting the lines between us feel longer with each word I write. But you gotta know, I did fight for you with everything I thought I had, got down to bare bones and found more when you needed more. Scraped hope and healing from the dark, dank floor. God laughing as I pounded on yet another closed door, shadow boxing in the darkness of this cave, vowing to never cave, fought back the monsters in each wave, from anger to anxiety, from depression to debauchery, wrestling with the brutal beasts of not believing, fighting to turn the IP of imposter syndrome to intellectual property. You always deserved more than I did for me. I knew you would find your way home, even with only frail fragments of a map. Avoid the daunting dots left before you like a trap. I knew you'd be better than me one day. Sacrifice the fragility that had made us this way. Dear future me, I love you and I pray for you every day. There's that piece. Okay, this is from this last poetry month. This is the last 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row I've done poetry month in April, and it's been really monumental for me. So this was called Leap of Faith. I never leap, I tiptoe. In teasing twirls, I saunter up slowly. I romance opportunities. A flash of a coy smile, side eye glances and flirting with potential, entreating faith to approach me, courting a manifestation, taking a seat at the edge of the precipice, crossing my legs in a pretty pose, bantering about the possibilities of tomorrows, setting the scene for seductive scenarios, wooing the will of the world, hoping the universe will notice me, deem it my destiny that the wind will be my wingman, hold my hand, push me to fly, exceed the barriers of this artfully erected artificial sky. And you know, I could wait there till the end of time, considering the infinite what ifs, playing Eve to the serpents in my head, taking tentative turns with trillions of timelines, contemplating a sky full of stars. I'm more reticent than initial lunar stages, the sliver of my light only growing in celestial phases, as patient as a solar eclipse over a blue moon, I will emerge more triumphant than the rising sun, brighter than the light of that last lonely star, more hopeful than the blaze of dawn. And that's that piece. Okay. It's a lot. Okay, let's do. This is actually the very first piece in my book. It is dedicated to my grandmother and my mother and her twin sister. La Luna never gets to dream. Shy of the silhouettes of sweet slumber, sitting silently, shining in solitude, seeming to be surrounded by stars, they are actually a million miles away, and she is alone in a crowd. So instead, she dutifully stands watch over us as we sleep. She stretches out her loving arms and holds up the night sky across her back, a guardian of the angels among us, the dreamers lost in sleepless nights. Yet no matter how bright she shines, no one thinks to make a wish on her light. She is just there, the closest companion of the darkness flowing out of us. Like the moon, Esther was never afforded the luxury to dream. Being married off at the sacred age of 17, birthing twin girls into a male-dominated world, bearing the brutality of being a mother when you still needed to be mothered, when you saw judgment weighing heavy, smoothing the edges of your hard curves, the definitions of who you are defined by careless words. People started to partake when the jello was still meant to be taking shape. Like patient backup ballerinas stretching yearningly in the wings. One more child to raise with the brute force of being, one more meal to cook with pure, unsalted love, one more story to retell of the history that created us, one more hurt to heal with the magic hidden in the folds of an apron, never wanting to be deemed demanding, waiting half a century to be spoken into being. Don't judge their meaning, not worthy or demeaning. This girl was just dreaming of dreaming. Esther's daughters would dream, but only in black and white, the color stolen by the guardians of the status quo, the soldiers who knew their days were only numbered by the mere feelings of fearless females, hiding in the darkness of the shadow of greatness, waiting to redraw those lines. But first, you have to survive a revolution of upheaval. No rest will be afforded to the weariest of people, discovering you never belonged to any piece of land. Through generations, you never grew attached to any grain of sand. You're just a wanderer, carrying the whole world in your hand, because double X always marks the spot of lineage. You become responsible to transport an ancestral heritage. It always rests on the back of the strongest horse of the carriage. My mother just barely finished telling me that story and then leaned in close with gentle intent, sprinkling seedlings in my ear like magic beans that would grow into my own giant story, another branch on the beanstalk reaching into the clouds of heaven. She whispered, I'm giving you all the art supplies. Don't you dare waste them coloring inside the lines. You dream wild dreams in charismatic colors. Only you dream them for me. Well, no, that's actually not what she said at all. I imagined it all. Her whispers simply faded into embattled breaths. But since I know when I die, I will not have a daughter by my side, my dream of freedom will have to be your dream too. So I promise you that, Mom. I will be brave for you if you will be a dreamer for me. And that is that piece. Okay, so that's all from the sections called origins. And those are from some of the sections called endings. This piece is called Dawn. Dawn threatened the night at the edge of everything. Don't close your eyes or you will miss me as I miss you every morning when I wake. The thoughts slipping like sand through my fingers. Memories gathering their belongings, escaping through the dirty glass, the messy anguish of the window pane, blurring the details. But clear eyes witness the whole story. No more tears left at the bottom of my well. I have not been well. I continue to fake it for the crowd. Even as I fall apart, I still play the part, entertain the audience while the house lights are dim. When everything is dim, be a faithful fan favorite, carrying a faith that no longer carries me, a theory I no longer believe. The last time I spoke to God was by your hospital bed. I said my goodbyes then, the road splitting with an old friend, a weary traveler in time. Your spirit holding up mine, light would disappear, the illusion of a shadow, steal your breath, play hide and seek with fragile hopes, those playing dress up, posing as powerful prayers, fleeing away into their hiding place, next to the wishes sacrificed on the first star of the night, manifestations of the new moon as she flows through her phases, only claiming her fullness of being at the very end of her story, waning in the late hours of the evening, fourth quarter Hail Marys, a battle with the approaching morning, reaching back, my mind contorting, I'd twist myself into a snake to fit through the cracks of time, to relive the memories, slow waltzing in the back of my mind, to hear God's voice again in the fullness of your laughter, to believe in the hope of what comes after, all the while staring at a lightless, empty sky, thoughts of endings plaguing me, of a waxing crescent, curious if maybe it would have been better if it was just dark forever. I wonder as a new dawn pushes rudely into the room. That is that piece. Okay, let's see. We have time for one more, I think. I'm trying to think how to end it on a happier note.
Do you, honey? You're doing brilliantly.
Okay. Here's one in the middle. And it is called actually, let's do this. We used to be poetry. You and me, we used to be poetry, spiraling into the rapture of this artistry, rekindling our flame by the constant cycling of energy existing solely on the riches of rhythmic alchemy, flowing effortlessly, feeling Sunday morning easy, collaborating in a universe of asymmetry, entertaining with stories of our pretty little prodigy, hypnotizing the masses with our chemistry, getting high on our intricate lines of ecstasy, clamoring to hear us preach this metaphoric ministry, witnessing the combined DNA of a perfect story, savoring just one taste of the sweetest memory. You and me, we were meant to be poetry. We are deep roots tangling subterraneously across the continent, west to north, diagonally, worlds away, connecting somehow cosmically. Feel myself being pulled to you intrinsically, absorbed by our magic, flowing majestically. Obviously, the universe is in on this conspiracy, lyrically speaking our future into prophecy, methodically falling into the path of destiny. You and me, we broke poetry, devastated the original rhyme theory, arrogantly fumbled the delivery, viciously violated every sacred decree, shattered that mirror that had made us lucky, spoiling the end of the movie, lost our hand to thoughtless thievery, naively corrupted every boundary, brutally dropped that mic accidentally. You and me, we ran out of poetry. Ripened fruit fell effortlessly off that tree, carelessly spilled the last drops of tea. Tears ran dry on their way to salt the Dead Sea. End of the mystery. No more reasons to deceive. Magicians with no more tricks up their sleeve, slipping the old record back into the sleeve. Children, exhausted the fairy tale to believe. The governor denied the final reprieve. The dream dissolved on this midsummer night's eve, 'cause finally everything beautiful was that would ever be. And that's that piece.
You're killing me here. Okay. You're that's all I can, you're killing me here.
As depressing.
Is that time for one more piece? If you've got one more piece in
Oh,
you.
cool. Okay. Let's do Midnight Blue. Do a little love at the end. On this silent night, I will play the moon to your deep midnight blue. I will lay against your darkness and hold up your sky. I will call out to the wandering wolves to sing us into the serenity of a lullaby. I will share a sacred chant that carries into the endless, empty existence, a recalling of the rapture, a falling into the resistance, serenading us a love song for our final dance, a spiritual hymn to kindle the blaze of our smoldering romance, a tango, tangling the tentacles of the rising sun off in the distance, swaying the branches of the trees till the leaves even fall into our trance. I will sprinkle stars like dewdrops on our long road to Zion, whisper wild winds to wrap around the rays of your summer sun. I will kiss red and orange streaks into your autumn horizon, trigger the winter waves of the ocean to call back that lost siren, play queen of the sea, Amphitrite to your Poseidon, give birth to the purple majesty of our impossible vision, raise a civilization nourished by the love you've given, inhabit the heavens to heal your hidden and hardened inhibition. I will turn every ending into a new beginning's ignition. I will battle the summer departing as an act of treason, kissing the stars left by the passing of the season, transcend tomorrows and the turns of every transition. I will make whispers of your name into a religion. I will hold back the hands of time to make this reluctant moment stay, because the truth is the words just don't exist yet to properly relay. So instead, I'll send you love notes from millions and millions of light years away that show up as the North Star when the darkness makes us lose our way. And that's that piece. Oh, I did this into sorority.
Bird. Bird. Um,
That's it.
in it. Y'all open up your mics. Still this lady some roses. That was an absolutely, I could
Thank
not
you
have
for
loved that
staying.
more.
It's a lot.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Let's go! Rita's out here, the raw poet. Woo!
Y'all, that's my publisher.
That's okay. We all feel the same way. She's just a little bit more vocal than the rest of us. But that was, thank you so much, honey. That was absolutely incredible.
My pleasure.
Just, as I said to you, I think the last time we met, that was all and everything it will ever need to be.
Thank you. This has been fun because you are convincing me that I can do longer sets.
I was telling Bianca in a minute, I'm going to go to an hour-long format.
Wow.
And just let y'all really just like spread your wings. So that's down the road a bit, so you don't have to get nervous for at least another 7 minutes.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
so once again, open up your mics, tell this lady some roses before we get out of here for, I can't even say for the weekend, just for the evening, because y'all Tesoro has stuff going on
Cool.
tomorrow and again next week. We are actually booked with shows all the way up until November the 17th. So every Friday, something's going to be going on. Keep an eye on the Tesoro website, which is www.pliresingers.com. Keep an eye on your Instagram and Facebook and all those other places on social media because we'll just be blowing up all over the place. So tomorrow, because dreamers never die and there's no rest for the wicked. Tomorrow, on Gestalt Poetry will be our London connection, Red Medusa. She will be on at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And then, because it only really gets better, we have the poet Rose Gold doing The Word is Right at 5 o'clock tomorrow Pacific time.
Yay.
So both of those are spread, all over the place on Facebook. If you've got any questions about either show, please feel free to hit me up. Again, if you want to see what Tesoro is doing, who we are, what we're into, go to www.pliresingers.com. If you are interested in contributing to our flow, just go to PayPal, donate at poetswind@hotmail.com. 90% of everything that you donate to us goes to our feature. 10% comes back to Tesoro to keep the lights on. Again, Rita, thank you so much. Wherever you are in the world, everybody who's on the grid right now, have a fantastic rest of the weekend, and we will most assuredly see you somewhere around the way.
Love y'all.
Have a